They don't tell you when it happens. One day, you just hear it crack, not out loud, inside. Pause, the sound of something sacred snapping. Your trust, your patience, your silence. Funny thing, the world calls it breaking. I call it beginning. There was a night I remember when everything I believed in folded under its own weight. The people I bled for, the ones I defended when they threw stones at me, were the first to vanish when the storm came. You ever notice? The loudest "I got you" is always the first to fade into silence when you fall. That night, I didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't fight. I just sat there, watching the walls of my life collapse like paper. And I smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, but because pain finally told the truth. Everyone else was too polite to say. Pause, faint laugh. They were never with me. They were with what I could give. You learn quick. People don't betray you. They reveal themselves. That's what broken means. It's not the end of strength. It's the exposure of illusion. Pause. You call it heartbreak. I call it X-ray vision. Suddenly, you see who's hollow and who still has a pulse. I used to chase validation like oxygen. Used to think if I just proved I was good enough, they'd stay. But the truth? They never left because you were wrong. They left because you were right, because your light made their shadows longer. And when people can't rise to your level, they try to convince you to fall back to theirs. Pause. That's when you realize you weren't losing people. You were shedding noise. The night I cracked, I didn't die. I transformed. See, a clean surface never learns to reflect. Only a cracked mirror shows multiple angles of truth. Irony, isn't it? The moment you break, you start to see everything clearly. Pause. You start seeing how pity is just control with makeup. How love can be a leash. How forgiveness can be manipulation. The world teaches you to stay quiet, smile through the fracture, pretend it doesn't hurt. But that silence, it's not strength, it's suppression. And one day, pause music drop, it erupts. That's when they call you cold, arrogant, heartless. No, you just stopped bleeding for people who watched you die the first time. You stopped saving others from the fires they lit. You stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. That's when you stop being nice and start being real. Pause, whisper. Because real doesn't beg. Real endures. Real walks through hell and laughs when it realizes it's fireproof. Pain is strange. It destroys your plans so it can build your purpose. You think you're dying, but all that's burning is who you can't be anymore. Pause. The polite version. The understanding version. The version that smiled through disrespect just to keep the peace. Now, breath. Peace is the war you win inside your own silence. I remember staring at the ceiling that night, feeling absolutely nothing, numb, empty. And in that emptiness, I found something pure, clarity. You know what clarity sounds like? Quiet, pause, no noise, no pretending, just truth echoing in your own voice. I'm done. And once you say those words, the world can't control you anymore, because they only win when you need their validation. Take that away, and you become untouchable. I realized that night I wasn't broken. I was just finally unmasked. They didn't destroy me. They dismantled the illusion I was protecting. And when everything around you collapses, you learn the one lesson they never want you to know. You were never meant to be saved. You were meant to rise. You don't rebuild after that kind of pain. You redefine. You become the storm they swore you couldn't survive. They called it the night I broke. I call it the night I was born without mercy. You weren't angry for no reason. You were angry because no one listened. You were angry because you bled, and they called it drama. Pause. Rage isn't madness. Rage is proof you were still alive. They like to pretend anger is ugly, uncivilized. Calm down. Don't overreact. Soft laugh. Of course they say that. Only the comfortable tell the wounded to be quiet. Listen, I didn't wake up one day and decide to burn. I was made this way, piece by piece, by being unheard, unseen, unchosen. Pause. By giving everything and getting silence in return. You know that silence? That's what builds rage. Not the betrayal itself, but the part where they act like it never happened. Like your pain was optional. So I stopped pretending. I stopped swallowing it. I let the fire talk. You were angry because you cared. You were angry because you stayed. You were angry because you believed them. Pause. Don't let them twist that into weakness. They call you emotional when you finally speak. They call you toxic when you stop taking disrespect. They call you cold when you protect your peace. They call you changed when you stop being the person they could step on. No, I didn't change. I just stopped being convenient. Low laugh, big difference. Here's the part they don't like me saying. Anger is not the enemy. Anger is the bodyguard of your soul. It shows up when something sacred is being violated. It says, enough. It says, no more. It says, we don't die here. Pause. You didn't explode because you were unstable. You exploded because they kept testing how far they could push you. And you, being loyal, kept forgiving, kept believing, kept hoping they'd finally act right. But abusers love quiet victims. Controllers love calm targets. Users love the version of you that always says yes. So when you finally said no, they called you crazy. Rage is the moment the mask falls off. yours and theirs. Because when you got loud, they got honest. That's when they show their real face, the mockery, the gaslighting, the wow, you're so different now. Pause. No, I'm not different. I'm just not asleep. They didn't break you. They exposed themselves. They showed you what your silence was feeding. Every time you let it slide, every time you said it's okay, you were teaching them how to hurt you. So rage came to teach you instead. I know what they tell you. Control your temper. Boys don't cry. Real men don't get emotional. Raspy growl. That's how they kill lions. Not with weapons, with shame. They shame your fire, so you never learn to burn with it. They shame your anger, so you numb it. You bottle it. You make it small. You turn it inward. And then one day you wake up depressed and they say, "What happened to you?" Pause. You know what happened? You aimed your rage at yourself because you weren't allowed to aim it at the people who earned it. But I learned something. Anger is holy when it's clean, when it's not revenge for ego but protection of self, when it's not I want them to hurt, but I won't let them hurt me again. That kind of rage, that's evolution. That's when the man who kept apologizing finally says, "No, I was right." That's when the one they laughed at starts speaking in a tone that makes the room go silent. That's when the one they discarded stops asking, "Why me?" and starts saying, "Watch me." Pause. Rage turns victims into architects, into builders, into monsters, the good kind, the kind that guard their soul. You were angry because you saw everything. You were angry because you remembered what they forgot. You were angry because you gave them the version of you you never gave to anyone, and they wasted it. So now the smile is smaller, the circle is tighter, the standards are higher, and your eyes, they don't beg anymore. They measure. That's what rage does when it matures. It becomes standards. Pause, tone softens. But here comes the real question. The one that separates boys with wounds from men with purpose. Who are you when there's no one left to be angry at? When they're gone? When the calls stop? When the room is empty and the only heartbeat is yours? What then? Because all this fire, all this roaring, all this "I'll show them" is gasoline. It gets you moving. It gets you out. It gets you strong. But it can't be the only reason you rise. Rage wakes you up, but purpose keeps you awake. So yes, be angry. You earned it. But don't stay angry. Aim it. Shape it. Weaponize it. Turn it into discipline. Turn it into silence. Turn it into a life so sharp they can't even say your name without bleeding. You were never too angry. You were just speaking a language they hoped you'd never learn. Silence. That's the part they never warned you about. It doesn't hit like betrayal. It doesn't scream like rage. It just sits there, quiet, showing you everything you didn't want to see. Pause. Funny thing about silence, it doesn't lie. It just shows. There comes a moment after the storm, after the shouting, the bleeding, the fire, when everything goes still. No phone ringing, no apologies coming, no audience left to blame, just you. And the echo of every choice you made. Pause. It's strange how loud the truth gets when everyone else finally shuts up. That's when it hits you the betrayal wasn't just what they did. It was how long you stayed hoping they'd stop doing it. Low laugh. You weren't blind. You were just loyal to the wrong room. You see, the mind loves noise. It hides in it. It needs distraction to survive the truth. That's why people keep toxic company, not because they like pain, but because silence would force them to see who they really are without the applause. Pause. And when the noise finally stops, you realize you were surrounded, but you were never seen. You were loved, but never understood. You were present, but never known. That's what silence reveals, how much of your life was spent performing for people who never noticed the script. When I first felt it, I thought I was going insane. The quiet was unbearable. No validation. No chaos to fix. No one to prove wrong. Just this empty hum in my chest. It felt like loss. But it was actually return. Pause. Breath. Because silence doesn't take things away from you. It takes you away from things that were never yours. That's its gift. And its cruelty. Low tone. You can't unsee what silence shows you. You can't unknow who you've outgrown. You can't pretend you still fit into a world that made you shrink to stay loved. You know what hurts most? Realizing you weren't the hero in your story. You were the excuse everyone used to stay comfortable. Pause. You were the shoulder, the listener, the strong one. You were the bridge that everyone walked across just to reach their own peace. And when you finally collapsed, they called you selfish. Soft laugh. They don't miss you. They miss the access. That's the kind of truth you only hear in silence. But let's be honest, you ignored it for a long time, didn't you? Pause. You felt it when conversations got shorter. You saw it when smiles stopped reaching eyes. You heard it in every "I'm fine" that sounded like a farewell. But you stayed because you wanted to believe in what could be instead of what already was. And that's not weakness. That's love. Misplaced. That's faith without direction. You weren't naive. You were human. Pause. And being human hurts. You start to realize that silence isn't punishment. It's purification. It's the universe cutting the noise so you can finally hear yourself again. You start to see that peace wasn't hiding in someone's arms, it was waiting in your own stillness. But peace doesn't feel peaceful at first. It feels like loneliness, like withdrawal from chaos, like detoxing from the very poison you thought you couldn't live without. Low tone. That's why most people run back. They mistake comfort for healing, noise for company, closeness for connection. Silence forces you to grow past all of that. Pause, calm confidence. I used to think silence was empty. Now I know it's full of answers I was too afraid to ask. It showed me who I was when no one was watching. It showed me how much energy I spent trying to fix people who enjoyed being broken. It showed me how powerful solitude is when you stop calling it loneliness. That's the shift. That's the rebirth moment. When you stop chasing echoes and start listening to original voice inside you. Pause. You. That's the cruel joke of it all. The truth doesn't come wrapped in thunder. It arrives in a whisper, and if you're still addicted to noise, you'll miss it. That whisper says, they were never the cage. Your fear of being alone was breath. That whisper says, stop waiting for closure. The silence was the closure. That whisper says, you don't need them to understand. You just need to understand yourself. And when you do, when the silence finally stops hurting, it starts healing. You sit in the dark, you breathe slow, and suddenly the quiet doesn't scare you anymore. It calms you, it sharpens you, it crowns you. You start moving differently, not louder, not faster, just clearer. You stop explaining, you stop chasing, you stop performing. Because once you've heard truth in silence, everything else sounds like noise. Pause, whisper. You were never weak for staying. You were strong enough to see it through. But strength has phases, and now it's time for the next one. Silence isn't emptiness, it's evolution. It's what happens when the version of you that begged to be understood finally meets the version of you that doesn't need to be. You weren't abandoned. They thought they buried me. They didn't know I was soil. Pause. You don't become fire by wanting warmth. You become fire by surviving the cold. There's always a day, a moment that rewrites everything you thought you were. Not the loud kind, not an explosion, just quiet recognition. A simple decision that feels like breathing in gasoline and daring the world to strike the match. Mine came the day I stopped asking, why me? And started whispering, try me. Pause, low laugh. That's when everything changed. You see, pain isn't the enemy. Comfort is. Pain sharpens. Comfort softens. And I got tired of being soft in a world that only respected sharp edges. They told me to forgive. I did. They told me to move on. I did. They told me to stay humble. I did. And you know what it got me? Ignored. Breath. People don't respect your kindness. They weaponize it. They don't hear your silence. They mistake it for weakness. So I learned something ugly and freeing. The only language this world listens to is power. Pause tone rising slowly. That's when I changed my prayer. I stopped asking to be healed and started asking to be transformed. Because healing means you want to go back. Transformation means you never will. They broke me, yes, but broken bones heal harder. Broken souls burn longer. And when you finally get tired of dying quietly, you start building loudly. I didn't want revenge. I wanted rebirth. There's a difference. Revenge wants them to suffer. Rebirth wants you to never need them again. Pause. And that's what I chose. I chose to become fire. Fire doesn't beg to be understood. It doesn't apologize for what it consumes. It doesn't ask permission to rise. It just burns. Consistent, unforgiving, alive. That's the day I stopped waiting for someone to save me. The day I stopped wishing things were different. The day I stopped explaining myself to people who were committed to misunderstanding me. Because you can't awaken in the same room that kept you asleep. You can't rise surrounded by those who love your ashes. So I walked out. Pause. No announcement, no closure, just distance and evolution. You'll know that day when it comes. It's not dramatic. It's surgical. It's when your heart still hurts, but your spirit starts smirking. When your tears dry mid-fall because something inside whispers, "I'm done begging." Low tone. That's when power begins. Not with noise, but with finality. With peace so violent that the old you dies quietly in the corner. Pause. Slow rhythm. I used to think fire destroyed. Now I know. It clarifies. It removes what's fake, burns away what's fragile. And what survives the flames was meant to. I used to think I needed people to see my worth. Now I know. If they couldn't see it before the fire, they don't deserve to stand near its heat. Fire taught me that solitude isn't loneliness. It's isolation with purpose. It's focus. It's revenge disguised as peace. Pause, breath. It's sitting alone and realizing you're not waiting for anyone anymore. The day I chose to become fire, I stopped chasing closure. I stopped needing explanations. Because closure is their comfort, not yours. The real power is walking away mid-sentence and never looking back. They'll call you cold. They'll call you selfish. They'll say, "You've changed." Soft laugh. They're right. I changed from trying to be liked to being undeniable. I changed from trying to be understood to being untouchable. You see, power doesn't mean control over others. It means control over reaction. They can throw stones, but when you're fire, stones melt too. Pause, calm confidence. That's when I realized I didn't need revenge. I was the revenge. Every breath, every move, every success done in silence was a funeral for their expectations. People fear fire because it doesn't flinch, it doesn't plead, it doesn't explain, it just exists, and everything weak adjusts. Pause. You want to know what freedom feels like? It's not applause, It's not validation, it's indifference. It's waking up and realizing nothing they do can touch who you've become. Low laugh tone softens. They'll still talk, they'll still watch, they'll still wonder how you did it, but they'll never understand because they never survived the temperature that built you. You can't explain transformation to someone who never burned. Pause. That's why I stopped arguing with ghosts. I let silence speak. I let progress sting. I let time do the talking. And when they finally see the flames, they'll whisper, "What happened to you?" You tell them, "I stopped being your light and learned to be my own fire. They thought they turned me into ashes. They didn't know ashes are just smoke learning to rise again." Not everyone left you. Some of them just got used to you staying. Pause. That's worse, because it means you were dying in their story while they were living comfortably in yours. There comes a point after the fire, after the screaming, the revenge in your chest, after you finally said, "I'm done." When you realize something colder, if you stay connected to what hurt you, you will keep becoming what hurt you. Pause, low tone. That's when detachment walks in. Not as weakness, not as running away, as self-respect. Let me say it the way nobody says it. Power is not noise. Power is distance. Anyone can shout, anyone can post, anyone can rage online. But the one who disappears, the one who stops reacting, the one who refuses to keep playing the role that one becomes dangerous. Because people can handle your anger, but they cannot handle your absence. Pause. They can argue with you. They can twist your words. They can guilt you. They can love bomb you. But they can't fight someone who just isn't there anymore. You stayed too long in places that didn't clap for you. You loved too loud in rooms that whispered about you. You gave too much to people who only knew how to take. And every time you tried to leave, they pulled you back with, "I miss you. Don't be like that. You know I care." Soft laugh. No, you don't. You care about access. You care about the version of me that served you. You don't care about the version of me that saves me. That's why detachment is terrifying to them, because it means the show is over. You're not performing in their script anymore. Here's the quiet truth. Some people don't want you healed. They want you almost healed. Healed enough to help them, broken enough to still need them. Pause, so they feed your wounds just enough to keep you coming back. Tell me what hurts. Tell me what he did. Tell me what they said. They don't want your peace. They want your story. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your whole life narrating pain for people who enjoy your tragedy more than they enjoy your growth. Detach or die in their story. Breath slower. Detachment is not hate. It's not revenge. It's not even anger. It's the realization that proximity is expensive, that every phone call costs energy, every convo costs focus, every old connection costs the new future. And you don't have the luxury to keep paying for people who never invested. So you go cold, not bitter, just unavailable. You stop explaining. You stop defending yourself in chats. You stop writing essays to people who were never reading with an open heart. You stop trying to prove you were the good one. Pause. Good people don't chase understanding. They move in silence and let God annotate. Listen carefully. Detachment is the bridge between pain and power. Without it, you keep circling the same wound. You keep watching their life. You keep stalking their page. You keep replaying what happened. You keep rehearsing arguments in your head. Conversations that will never happen with people who will never be honest. You know what's stronger than winning a fight? Not needing the fight. You know what's louder than saying I'm right, not saying anything, and letting time prove it. You know what's more attractive than revenge? Elevation. Pause, calm confidence. But you can't elevate while you're still in their audience. I had to learn this the hard way. I wasn't addicted to them. I was addicted to being needed by them. I liked being the hero. I liked being the loyal one. I liked being the only person who understands. But that role was killing me because they didn't want me to grow out of it. They wanted me frozen in that identity so they never had to face their own growth. Detachment broke that spell. It said, I am not the character you cast me as. I am the writer now. Pause. When you detach, you stop asking, why didn't they choose me? And you start saying, why did I keep choosing them? That's the shift. That's the Joker calm. That smile that says, I see you now. I see the pattern. I see the trap. And I'm not walking into it a fourth time. Some people will call you distant. Some will call you proud. Some will say, you don't check in anymore. Soft laugh. That's the point. I am not a subscription. You don't get weekly access to my energy after you showed me you can't handle it. Detachment is boundaries with backbone. It's love with wisdom. It's peace with a lock on it. And when you master it, you stop losing yourself in other people's storms. You can sit in front of someone who once shattered you and feel nothing. No hatred, no shaking, no urge to explain. Just distance, just clarity, just I hope you heal over there. Pause, total stillness, because in the end, you either detach or you keep playing a side character in a story that keeps killing you. And I didn't crawl out of hell to die as someone else's subplot. I chose silence over access, distance over performance, my story over theirs. Once I stopped chasing, everything that was meant for me started walking in calmly. Pause. You don't become powerful by running after people. You become powerful when people have to adjust to your silence. They trained you to beg, prove you're good, show you're loyal, stay available, scoff, soft laugh. Of course they did. Begging keeps them in control. But here's the part they don't teach in school, church, or family. Real power is not in pursuit, it's in position, not comeback. But this is where I am, rise to it or stay out. Pause. That's when life flips. That's when you go from hunted to handler. Look at the story so far. First, they broke you. Then you burned. Then you went quiet. Then you detached. Now you learn to rule. This is the part where you stop being emotional furniture in everyone else's house. You become the architect. You choose who sits, who enters, who never gets the address. Because after the pain, after the rage, after the silence, there has to be a system. Otherwise, you'll bleed again for the same level of people. Pause. Confident tone. Here's the system. I don't chase. I command. I don't return. I replace. I don't argue. I decide. I don't explain my boundaries. I enforce them. That's not arrogance. That's recovery. That's what happens when you've seen what begging does to a soul. How it twists your spine. How it makes you shrink in your own story. How it turns warriors into waiters. No more. You ever notice this? The moment you stop overgiving, the moment you stop replying fast, the moment you say no, suddenly they miss the old you. Low laugh. They don't miss the old you. They miss the version of you they could walk over. So now you give them a new version. Stricter, sharper, colder, not cruel, just priced. Because access to you is no longer free. This is where standards become weapons. Not swords you wave around, but walls no one crosses. Text me with respect, or don't text. Speak with clarity, or don't speak. Show up with effort, or don't show up. I no longer reward inconsistency. I no longer clap for bare minimum. I no longer entertain people who treat me like a backup plan. Pause, low tone. I am not a placeholder. I am the place. See, people love a version of you that needs them. They get drunk on your dependency. They love when you chase, because the one who chases is the one who fears losing. But what happens when you're not afraid to lose? What happens when you're willing to walk away even from what you wanted? That's when your presence becomes expensive. That's when your silence becomes a punishment. That's when people start doing what they could have done from day one because now they're not sure they'll get another chance. Pause, calm dominance. This is high ground. Energy. This is throne energy. Not loud, not shouting, just unmovable. I don't run after calls. I don't chase closure. I don't perform to stay. I don't convince anyone I'm worth it. You saw me. You heard me. You knew what I carried. If you let it go, that was your risk, not mine. I don't chase because what is mine already recognizes me. People will tell you, that's cold, that's ego. No, no, no. Pause, soft laugh. It's hierarchy. Pain taught me my rank. Silence taught me my price. Detachment taught me my capacity. So now I move like I know it. You think CEOs chase. You think kings chase. You think wolves chase every single thing that moves? No. They choose. They conserve. They let the wrong things walk, so the right things can find a clear path. That's the level you're entering. Decision over desperation. Here's the real trick. When you stop chasing, you expose who was only there because you made it easy. Some people disappear the moment you start matching their energy. Good, let them. Your absence is a mirror. It shows who was taking, who was pretending, who was only clapping because you were clapping first. Pause. You want loyalty? Stop subsidizing people's laziness. Let them earn your attention. Let them qualify for your time. Let them feel the weight of your silence. And from there, from that cold, clean, razor-sharp place, you can finally build. You can build work without wondering who's watching. You can build your body without hoping they notice. You can build your future without checking if they're jealous. Because the moment you stop chasing, you start creating. Your life stops being a reaction and becomes a command. I don't return, I replace. I don't chase, I command. And anyone who wants a seat can rise to the throne I built in silence. You thought being broken was punishment. Pause. It wasn't. It was the invitation. The universe didn't destroy you. It introduced you to yourself. There's a cruel misunderstanding in this world. People think strength is about never breaking, but real strength is about breaking and never staying that way. Pause. Because the truth is, every version of you that shattered was protecting a door you were too afraid to open. And when that door finally broke, you called it pain. But it was freedom. Soft laugh. You didn't lose control. You lost illusion. You see, I spent years trying to tape my life back together, trying to pretend the cracks didn't show, smiling when I wanted to scream, forgiving when I wanted to disappear. All because I thought broken meant unworthy. But one night in the silence, in the smoke, after everyone left and the noise died, I realized something no one ever told me. Broken things don't go back to what they were. They become something else, something sharper, something truer, something that doesn't need fixing anymore. Pause, calm, reflective tone. That's when it hit me. Every betrayal, every goodbye, every failure wasn't rejection. It was redirection. Every time something collapsed, it was pushing me toward who I was supposed to be before the world trained me to forget. You thought the pain was killing you, but it was just removing who couldn't go with you. Pause. You didn't need them to stay. You needed them to leave. Because you don't awaken surrounded by comfort. You awaken surrounded by loss. That's the trick, isn't it? We all want peace, but peace only arrives when chaos has taken everything it wants. We all want clarity, but clarity only comes when the fog burns. Breath. You prayed for strength, so the world gave you storms. You prayed for wisdom, so the world gave you silence. You prayed for love, so the world showed you loneliness. It wasn't cruelty, it was calibration. Because until you break, you'll never stop protecting the version of you that can't survive the truth. Pause, tone lowering, and now look at you. The world that tried to bury you now whispers your name. The people who laughed at your scars now want to know your secrets. Because that's what happens when you heal from within you. Stop needing to prove it outwardly. You stop talking. You stop explaining. You just move differently. Silence becomes your armor. Distance becomes your language. Peace becomes your revenge. Soft laugh. And that's when you realize you didn't change for power. You changed for peace. Power just came as a side effect. You thought breaking meant weakness. It meant awakening. You thought endings meant death. They meant rebirth. Pause, whisper, tone. Every collapse was a door. Every loss was a teacher. Every scar was a map. Every silence was a signal. The world doesn't hand crowns to the untested. It forges them through fire, breath, calm dominance. They said you became cold, but no, you became clear. You stopped confusing empathy with access. You stopped mistaking love for loyalty. You stopped trying to fix what thrives on breaking you. Now they say, you've changed. Pause, low laugh. Of course I did. I stopped dying in slow motion. This is what they'll never understand. You don't heal from being broken. You evolve because of it. You outgrow the cage. You outgrow the noise. You outgrow needing to be understood. And the beautiful irony, when you finally stop chasing closure, you become it. Pause. That's when people start saying, you've become distant. No, I've become defined. Every story has a breaking point. Yours just became your beginning. Because broken wasn't the end. Broken was the door. The door that showed you who was real, what was fake, and who you were always meant to be beneath all the pretending. Now you don't beg, you don't explain, you don't chase. You simply walk through the door that once scared you to death. Soft breath, that's enlightenment, born from ashes, dressed as calm. Pause, whisper tone fading. They left, you stayed, you rose. And when they finally ask what happened to you, just smile. Because they'll never understand broken was never your ending. It was your entrance. You weren't destroyed. You were reintroduced through the door they thought would break you.